How's it going, folks? I'm Matt. This is Photosynthetic. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bean. Now, today I've got a different guest. You may not recognize him, but hopefully you'll get to know him after this episode. The man, Muddy, Mudville Genetics. Welcome, sir.
How you doing, boss man? How you doing?
I am good, man. I'm good. I'm really stoked to have you on the show. And just to give a little background about how I came across you was recently picked up some beans. And I got some of your stuff as part of the package there. So just thought, I haven't had a chance to run these yet. I know we're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
But I thought this would be something different for me to reach out, somebody that I hadn't really heard of, but I now have your product and looking forward to running. I want to talk about it and get into a bunch of stuff. But hey, dude, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Pleasure to be here. It's my first interview, so I'm a little nervous and excited at the same time.
Well, awesome. First of many, I'm sure, because once the world gets a purview of what you've been working on, I'm pretty sure that folks will be talking. And at that point, I'm get into it. So, before we talk breeding and creating beans and all that stuff, why don't you just give me a little bit of background on who you are?
Well, I go by Muddy. I started my brand as Mudville Genetics. I'm from Stockton, California, and it's also known as Mudville. So that's kind of how I incorporated the name,
Right.
kind of blending in with the fact that I've always wanted to try organics. So simply the fact that I'm playing with water and dirt at the same time kind of coincided with each other. I started during the midst of the COVID pandemic. It
Yeah,
got
a
to
lot
a
of people
point
did. Yeah.
where in my area, if you wanted an eighth from the street prices, it was going around $90. And we from there it was about 25 to 30. So just the mass increase in itself, it just had me like, man, let me see if I can actually do this. And it was a couple of my friends at work just pushing me, saying it's really not as hard as you think it is. And they would just watch me at work. I would literally be sitting in the corner watching Mr. Canucks videos and just a whole bunch of stuff. So probably January 13, 2021, I got my first pack of beans from Bay Area Cannabis Seeds, and I haven't looked back since.
Nice, nice. And you touched on a little bit. You said organics, one of my favorite words. Of course, living soil grower, and we'll direct folks to your Instagram. They can go take a look at your stuff. But tell us about it. You've gotten in the organics and stuff. You got the beds going. How'd that
Yes, I
happen?
actually started off doing synths, just coming in, seeing what everybody was talking about. The most popular brand was Athena. So I talked to them for a little bit, just telling them that I was new and I was interested in trying it. And even with the discount code being half off, just spending 300, $400 on newts, and then it's just completely drained within a couple of months. It really wasn't the way for me. And then just
Yeah.
after talking to a few people, I ran into OK Calix and Dustin Two Soil, just a couple of people who were telling me you could really pretty much amend your own stuff. The water is just the most important part. And ever since then, I've saved so much money. And this will be my actual first run in the beds. I started with doing auto pots, and not a lot of people were really doing the living soil. So it was kind of hard to incorporate having the reservoir running at the same time, but then cutting it off so it's not oversaturating the soil for the beneficial insects and everything that's inside. So it was just getting to the point where I was just like, let's do the beds. I seen everybody saying that it's a lot easier to have the cover crops running inside, and the chances of overwatering is a lot less than what I was doing in other situations. So far so good, and I really don't see myself turning back because I like it.
Yeah, man. I mean, absolutely. It's the way that I run. I really love running living soil. Yeah, I've been playing around with a little bit of some of the salts and whatnot lately, just
Mhm.
because I think it's important for a grower to be able to sort of work with whatever you can get and whatnot, and take on those different challenges. But then, okay, so you started growing, you getting going with the boys and whatnot. They're giving you the encouragement, and then you
Mhm.
said, okay, I'm going to start breeding. I'm going to start making my own crosses.
Yes.
How did that happen?
It was kind of a spur in the moment thing. I got used to just having all females because it was just going to be the easiest process for me at the time. I wasn't really too sure starting off as how to identify males in the garden or just watching females. So I just bought a lot of fem packs, and I started off testing for one of my friends. And sure enough, I had a male in there. So I was quick to get ready to toss it, and a lot of people were just encouraging me. It was like, you already have it, so you might as well just see what you can do with it. So at that time, I was probably going in a 5x5 tent. So once again, went right back on YouTube and I was watching pollination videos. So I had my little paintbrush and I dabbed up a few branches and then I got my strain and it was a banana butter crossed with black frost. And that was my first strain. I called it Fried Manzanos. And from there, I just really became interested in the idea of breeding. But at the same time, I didn't realize the amount of work that went into it at the same time. So when I
Oh,
came on to the
absolutely.
second project, it was a little more intensive after talking to people, just seeing what actually people liked. So from structures to how long people wanted to see veg times and different profiles and stuff like that, it really became a choice thing. So I had to figure out what I liked in the plant as well as what other people like. Because I know for myself, I'm a heavy indica person. But
Yep.
at the same time, I know a lot of people who don't like to be sluggish all day. So it's just finding the balance in those hybrids and stuff like that. So it's been a process, but I really see myself trying to find the one particular one. This is pretty much what I've been doing in this run. It's just something that I really like for myself that I could cross with something that I know that somebody in the sativa range who likes to be more active can kind of get into the balance of where they're just not completely couch locked all day.
Absolutely, that's good. And I mean, purpose is the way to go. So when I talk about purpose, then what is the purpose? What is the process, even more so, that you're taking and working through your selections? How do you go about deciding what you want to keep moving forward?
So for mine, I recently became a fan of hash. So a lot of my friends have been putting me, yes, a lot of my friends have been putting me onto the live rosins and a lot of concentrates because I haven't, I want to say it's been about a good 12, 13 years since I've been in the concentrate days. I come from me and my friends chilling in the garage, halfway cracked open, just playing with BHO, trying not to explode and stuff like that. So
Yes.
so as soon as I came into this one, it was just like a complete difference. You could taste it, you could actually enjoy the high, and I like it a lot. So when my friends were telling me just look for things, a lot of rosin profiles come off of. If you have a good terp profile, that's a good thing because they'll be able to taste it when they're getting ready to do whatever. And a lot of it is the trichome factor. So I've been looking for a lot of in-house genetics has been my favorites. I like the platinum, the King Bling, the King Breast. I like the profiles on those. So I've been running a lot of those along with a lot of Relentless Genetics
Yep.
just because of their indica. And I've recently started dabbing into the land races, but I haven't really dived into there. So Irrazinig, I've been following them a lot, just looking
Yep.
at a lot of hash. And
That
I'm
content is fantastic. I'll throw a link down there if you guys don't know who we're talking about. But
really big fan of them. So
yeah,
I've tried to incorporate that. So a lot of heat stress testing. Even though we're not technically supposed to, I've been doing a lot of dry backs just to see how they handle in certain situations.
hmm,
Because me being in California, I'm not as humid, so I could play with certain situations to try and make my environment. As a lot of my friends who are in like East Coast New York, or I have a lot of friends in Michigan, so I know their environments are different. So I try
yep.
and incorporate some of those situations to make it so it's become a trick, but just working on dialing my environment now that I actually know what I'm doing, it's becoming a lot easier. But I'm still learning in the process.
Always, always, always. Every run's a new chance to learn something new. Um, so when you talk about hash and stuff, is there anything that you're currently working on that you're pushing towards maybe having a hash line with?
Right now, I'm currently in the in-house. I'm looking at the King Blings and I am looking at the Oasis from Grandiflora.
Hmm.
So a lot of those that I've seen online have been around the 3 to 5% in the hash or the production. So if I could find something along there, because I know I'm gonna have to, of course, send something out for testing, me not knowing exactly what to be looking for, that's probably going to be the range of what I'm trying to dive into. But as far as it being my first run with everything, it's still going to be a process, I know. So I'm asking a lot of questions to people I know who are already in it. So it's still like, but it's a learning process for sure.
Oh, so much fun. As long as you're willing to keep learning, man, and keep improving, stuff's just gonna get better. So, you said the word testing. Let's talk about that for a few. What are you doing to test out your gear after you've made the crosses?
So as far as testing, I've sent out a few to a couple of my friends in different places. So as I was saying, I have a couple of friends on the East Coast and the Midwest. A
Mhm.
lot of my friends who I've sent on the East Coast who ran my fried manzanos, it comes out more on the banana side. So it's more sativa lenient compared to the ones I've sent in Michigan who've come out more indica. So I'm probably chalking it up to the environment, just the temperature factors, because a lot of the stuff that I get when I grow out of my room leans towards the more indica side. So from what I've been doing on my testing is just a lot of, like I've been saying, heat stressing. So I've noticed a lot of my horchata strains or a lot of my not gelato dominant, but they have a lot of gelato process in them. They don't really take well to heat stressing. So I've lost a couple of plants in probably about 79 to 80-degree temps, which I've never really seen it in a couple of my other plants, which are really thriving in them. So I've known to just dial back. And a lot of my friends are telling me to, when I increase heat, it's a good chance that I'm probably not giving them enough nutrients to be able to withstand to try and fight them. So I'm trying to learn the balance of that. So the intake of what they need from the bottom was not matching their heat or what they're getting at the top. So I'm
Yeah,
still trying to learn that process right there. But as
always, always.
far as recommendations and stuff, I'm always willing to accept and learn because, like I've said, this is probably, I want to say, as far as deep diving into it, probably about year two. So I know I still have a long way to go before I actually have something that I perfected. But as far as things that I know for sure are genuine process, I like what's out so far.
Yeah. Let's talk about crosses. So this package that I have, the one that ended up on my desk, the ice cream. It's an ice cream cake BX2 that you put together.
Yes. That was the ice cream cake BX1 crossed with ice cake BX1 from Lit Farms. And around my area in the Bay Area, we're really good fans of great terpenes. So a lot of the gelato profiles, cookies, runts, of course, that's a lot of our favorites. But even before then, we had the wedding cakes, we had the ice cream cakes or the confetti cakes. And it's just something about that profile that no matter what you get or whatever strain you get from whoever, it always speaks to you in that just fruity, sour, and that's just what I wanted to incorporate in a lot of my strains because I know a lot of people like the candies and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
the fruit really can't pass it up.
Right on, right on. So, switching gears a little bit and talking about sort of what other people are doing. Who are you following along? Whose gear are you excited about?
Ooh, so me, I'm a really big fan of people like Relentless Genetics.
Yeah,
I
you talked about
like
it.
I like Pheno Addicts. I'm a really big fan of, like I said, indicas. So a lot of my strain choices have been along the dark sides. I like people who actually found black phenos. So
Mhm.
Swipe E the Don in Canada, he's who I've gotten my Black Frost process from. I've pretty much been growing his Black Frost since I started. So I sent him a picture of my very first plant, told him how much of a fan I was, and he ended up telling me to check my mail 2 weeks later, and I had about 75 seeds in there. So ever since then, I've just been running them, and I probably came down to my last 10. So I sent him an email, and I told him I was just extremely grateful because even if I wasn't buying beans or something like that, that was just enough to get me off my feet and just be able to have enough practice runs to be able to feel confident in what I was doing. And that's another thing that I've learned, like coming into this community, it's a lot more friendlier than the actual community of just cannabis in general. Like, of course, we have the
Yeah.
he and the she's, but as far as just random people reaching out and saying, "Hey, I've noticed that such and such," and just give you my 2 cents, and people aren't dicks about it, like compared to Facebook or something like that. They're a lot more generous and willing to give a hand if they see it. So I've noticed that, and that's what I've tried to incorporate into my brand, because it's a lot of people who, when I first started out, who are still around, who just given me positive feedback. So whenever I get my messages and stuff like that, it feels good, even though I'm not 100% positive. I'll still tell them like, hey, go check Google or YouTube or something like that. But just being able to help, it feels good at times.
So much. And, with the exception of Reddit, and it's a horrible place for growing advice, I find the community as a whole, just growers as a whole, everybody really wants to lift up and elevate each other. And it's just, here, man, let me get you some beans, grow some of this. I ran this stuff. I had great luck with it. See what you can do with it. And it gets better and better as we continue to, well, grow as we grow.
Yeah.
Who you dying to work with? If you could, hook up with any the big name breeders there and do some collab, who would you like to work with?
Well, I already have some people in mind, and one of them is a couple of my friends out in Michigan, a couple of my friends out in Ohio is Papermaker Genetics. So
Hey,
I
yeah.
really love their Manchego strain. Actually, when I was talking to him, I told him that I've never tried a cheese strain before,
Okay.
and he was sending me a pack, and I was just blown away. Well, it was actually like the first time I've ever tried a strain that actually gave off cheese, which kind of like shocked me because I know they say there's a profile for everything, which still shocks me. But you come across certain
It's
things to this
wild.
day. Like I came across a caramel that actually smelled like caramel, so I'm just like, hmm. So I pulled up the little profile book, and sure enough, there's different profiles that come across today that, sure enough, are in the strains that we're running. So when I came across the cheese, it was just something that blew my mind. So I told him we definitely have to do some stuff. So I sent him a couple of things, and he told me when he has the time, and I told him no rush. It's just being considered, like you said, still being new, so I don't have my fingers crossed or hopes up. Just the fact that I'm able to send stuff out to certain people, it already feels good in itself.
That's fantastic, and it's the sharing and just I love it.
Exactly.
Tell me about a time when something fell short of the mark. I mean, you're still new and doing some of this stuff, but uh,
Oh, I have.
failures tend to pop up.
Oh, I have a couple of them. My biggest one was when I lost my PlayStation 5 because I wasn't paying attention in my room. One of the reasons that I did switch to living soil in general from just running synth organics is I have watering issues. So it's a tendency to overwater, or it's just a tendency to just bump into the reservoir. So I had a 100-gallon reservoir that I wasn't paying attention to, and that just completely collapsed and spilled everywhere.
Oh no!
That ran all throughout the carpets. It had to completely reset the room. All the electronics that were on the floor, I just lost it. The trays from the auto pots, they exceeded from where they were supposed to come, and water just flowed out of everywhere. So from there, I was just like, yeah, it's time to go. So for the simple fact that with these beds, I have a little flat mat under it, and just running the glue mats, I never have an issue with overwatering.
Yeah,
So just the fact that I can fill up a res and it's just doing its thing, but the res is completely in its own section, I like that a lot. So that's one of the things. Living soil, um, it's helped me overcome my fear of insects. So there's a couple of them that I never really had a problem with, of course, like our roly polies and ladybugs. But one that I really don't mess with is spiders. And come to find out that the jumping spiders are actually our best friends. So
spiders are
it's
very good. Yes.
it's becoming a fear of mine, just letting them walk on by and do their thing and certain things, knowing that they're actually helping out the garden. I try to incorporate Hugo culture into my raised beds, which is just a certain section underneath the actual ecosystem where I'm just running complete logs.
Yep.
So I went to my neighbor's house and I grabbed all his logs that he was giving away, and I started setting them up in my room. my air conditioner went out. And when I came home, it was about 92 degrees in my room.
It's a little warm.
And when it's really warm, it becomes a breeding environment. So what I didn't know is the holes inside the logs were holes from carpenter bees. So carpenter bees are about 3 inches long and just rock solid, and they bore into wood and anything that they can.
Oh,
And it was about 50 of them just buzzing around the room. And that was just madness. So I had to bomb the room. Luckily, I was in veg. So I had to get water and vinegar and then just completely use the fogger to knock everything out. But you could hear for 3 days straight, since they're attracted to the light and terrible flyers. It was just the loudest pings all over the
oh,
wall. And
jeez.
I was just afraid to go in there. And so
Oh,
that was just madness. So insects and water is something that I've had to overcome inside of my room. And just learning that the second you notice something, it's not a, oh, I'll get to it later. It's, you got to get on it now. So whether it's a deficiency that you see, or you can see one thriper spider mite, and you could just be like, oh, killed it, and I'll come back to it later. That later can be so detrimental and you not even know it. It can be a complete reset of your garden, and you can have the most beautiful things in here. And you can be one of those guys who can just bypass it and act like you never seen it. But if you're one of the guys who constantly post and show updates, then of course it's going to show in your garden. So if you don't tend to certain things, then I've noticed that it plays a major role in your garden if you're not right on it. And
yeah.
that's what I've had to learn.
Oh, yes. Prevention is the key to IPM, but in the event that you can't, I've had year-long battles with thrips myself, and they're just a pain in the ass. So it's pests, pests, pests.
And yeah, all it takes is sometimes just that one clone that you wanted and you thought was all good, and you just bring it right in, and then that one clone could be enough to just mess up everything. So we're just like, ah. And
Yeah.
I've had that a couple of times.
The quarantine process is definitely a key one when bringing outside cuts.
Yeah.
So when we talk about cuts, when we talk about different plants, what about males? I mean, everybody kind of knows, oh, I'm selecting for female based off potency and yield and all that kind of stuff. But what about a male? What are you looking for when you're selecting a male?
So for my males, that is still in play for me. So when I look at my males, I'm looking for the most vigorous. So outside right now, like a couple of my friends have jokes about it and saying that I'm pretty much populating half of my city right now, but I have 8 males outside that I'm trying to pick from. So I've already eliminated 3. I'm down to 5, but I've noticed a lot of balls, but not a lot of leaf structures or not a lot of vigor inside the plants. So I get rid of those right away. If there's no color variations, especially during the times when the temps are changing compared to other ones, then I'll try and get rid of them right away. Like I have some that are already in the 2 to 3 feet range, and they've been growing at the same time as others that are still runts. So I've
Yeah.
learned that the hard way. The runts, even though you don't want to get rid of them, they're still your babies. It's just best to check them right away and not even just deal with the hassle of trying to make them catch up or something like that. So for
Yeah.
my males, I like color. So 9 times out of 10, if you don't get them out of the female, then hopefully you can get them out of the dad. So at 1 out of the 2, I hopefully try and get that indica dominant trait. So that's what I've really been leaning for is just vigor, plant structure, and the leaf ratio to balls. Even though I know a lot of people at the end of harvest don't like to really do a lot of trimming and stuff like that, but I'm still in the learning process of solar panels. So if I try and leave as much on there for you to get whatever you need, then at the end, hopefully it's still beneficial.
Yeah, and each plant is going to be different, and depending on your environment, and it's just there's so many things. I mean, yeah, it's always interesting to try and figure out which plant is going to be the best one, and then you got to run it and run it and run it. Um, Advice. Any key bits of advice that you've pulled in from more senior people that have really helped you, but then at the same time, any advice that you'd want to offer out to somebody just looking to get into breeding?
Just go for it. That was mine. I was so nervous about doing pretty much anything. I was so nervous about the soil that I was going to get. I was so nervous about the nutrients. I wanted the best of the nutrients. I wanted the best fabric pots. I wanted the best lights. And 9 times out of 10, it comes down to just really knowing what you're doing. If you actually take the time to invest in yourself rather than invest in the actual stuff that you're putting out, it'll put out better than what you see in the facilities. Like I still know people who run 2x4 blurples because they run in an apartment, but they don't really have the space, or and they're still putting out exact quality that they want, and the exact quality that people like is just tending to your plants at a certain step, certain level. So the PPFDs or how much nutrient intakes is just running that plant over and over again until you're finding what you like. Some people find it on the first run. Some people have to do it consecutive times, but that failure is never a failure because there's people who've been doing it for 20 plus years who still have failures to this day. I've come to learn that it's just another learning curve. So if it didn't work here, you find a way around it. And when that situation starts to arise again, you already know how to work around it. I've learned that there shouldn't be a reason why you've made the same mistake twice. If you've already made that same mistake, if you're not truly invested, because at the end of the day, it's not a business, but if you look at it, it's a business. We're investing time, we're investing money. And if you're saying that it's personal, then it's personal because you still want that quality that you're putting into it. And if you're trying to get an output of your seeds or your clones or whatever, then that becomes a business. Your name shows, your brand shows off the quality that you put out. So everything that you do at the end of the day has a meaning. So if you're just trying to bypass and get it, then people eventually will start to notice. You might have a good stretch, you might have a good run, but then that's when Instagram gets to talking, and all it takes is just one comment for everybody to just hop on, and then you're the next meme, and everybody knows your business. And
Yeah.
I've come through that a lot as what the past year and a half, a lot of people's business have just been starting to hit the streets. And if you weren't honest from the front, no,
Oh, what
get
happened
out. I
there?
think my phone is shutting down.
Oh no. Well, we'll have to cut the interview short then. It looks like, if that's the case, Muddy, we'll get your Instagram stuff put up down below, and folks, you can find him there on the Instagram. Go check him out. Check out his gear that he's running, and yeah, technical issues. You still there? No, I think we lost him. That's okay though, guys. Great chat, Muddy. I'm Matt. He was here. This is Photosynthetic. We out.